Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Patience. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you guys how I made this beautiful halter neck tiered maxi gown. So you can use it with a belt or without a belt. Before we get started, kindly click the subscribe button. If you have done that, let's get into it. I'll be using the chiffon fabric for this tutorial. It is 6 yards. I've gone ahead to mark my shoulder line. From the shoulder line, I'll mark my armhole measurement, which is 16 inches divided by 2, that is 8 inches. For the upper part of the dress, I'll be marking my shoulder to hip point, which is 26 inches. And I'll add ½ inch for joining allowance, that's 26.5 inches. For the neck width, I'll be using 3 inches, and for the neck depth, I'll be using 3 inches, that is for the front piece. And for the back piece, for the neck depth, I'll be using 1.5 inches. I'll go ahead and curve it this way. So I'll be using this pattern paper to cut out the front and the back pieces. So this is the chest line and the hip line. Now on the chest line, I'll mark quarter of my bust circumference, which is 10.5 inches. So I'll not be adding side seam here. I'll be adding side seam on my fabric, and I'll be adding extra inches for the ruffles on this dress. On the hip line, I'll also mark quarter of my hip circumference and connect it this way. For the arm side, I'll be connecting the neck depth to this point using a curved ruler this way, as you can see. Now if you leave the armhole this way, you will notice that there's a gaping on the side bust area. To fix that, I am going to mark the midpoint of this line. From the midpoint, I will go up by 3/4 inch. I'll extend the midpoint this way, as you can see me do, and I'll connect this 3/4 inch to the midpoint line. So I'm creating like a armhole dart. So I'll close this dart to avoid gaping on the side bust. Now I'll cut it out, cutting out the back neckline. Using my tracing wheel, I've gone ahead to trace out all the measurements on the other side of the pattern paper, as you can see. Now I'll measure around the back neckline and the front neckline. I'll be using the measurements to cut out my collar. So this is 8.5 inches and the front neckline is 10.5 inches. I'll write that down. So this part of the pattern paper is going to be my front piece, and the other side is going to be the back piece. So the back neckline is 8.5 inches and the front neckline is 10.5 inches. Now I'll cut out the midpoints. I'll keep the back piece aside. I'll close the front dart. After doing that, I'll cut out the front neckline. So that is it for the front and the back pieces. Make sure to also take in that on the back armhole. Now there's an opening on the back piece of this dress. To do that, I am going to be cutting the back piece on fold. So to do that, on my fabric, I'll go in by 1/4 inch. And then I'll mark the depth of the opening. I'll be using like 6 inches, and I'll make a curve to the 3/4 inch this way and cut it out. So I'll be marking another 3/4 inch that I'll use to sew for my facing. So I'm taking out 3/4 inch on the back neckline. So I'll minus the 3/4 inch from this 8.5 inches. That will give me 7.75 inches. Now to make the ruffle on this dress, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2. As you can see, this is the folded edge, and I've placed my pattern. I marked 8 inches from the folded edge, as you can see. Also marked the shoulder line, so I'll place my pattern on the 8 inches and I'll mark the neck depth from the shoulder line. Remember, I used 3 inches for the neck depth, so I'll align the pattern on the 3 inches this way, and I'll also mark the 3 inches on the folded edge of the fabric, as you can see. As you can see, the pattern is on the 8 inches and I extended the 3 inches for the neck depth to the edge, the folded edge this way. So I'll add 1 inch for side seam and then I'll cut it out. So this is what it looks like. So I'll mark about 2 inches from the armhole this way. So from these 2 inches, I'll be making gathered stitch down to these 2 inches, and I'll be making my ruffle to give the neck its shape. That is the 10.5 inches for the neck measurement. Also on the back piece, I've gone ahead to mark 8 inches, as you can see. And I've also marked the shoulder line. I'll be placing my pattern this way. Make sure to place the folded edge on the 8 inches. So remember, I used 1.5 inches for the neck depth. I'm going to extend the 1.5 inches to the folded edge this way and cut it out. Plus 1 inch on the side seam. Like I said, I'll be marking 1/4 inch for the opening on the back piece, and I'll be using 6 inches for the depth, and I'll make a curve and cut it out. So this is how it came out. I'll also be marking 2 inches from the armhole area this way, and I'll be making double gather stitch on 1/2 inch. So I'll make my ruffle to get the exact back neck measurement. So I've gone ahead to cut out a facing for the opening. I'll place the right sides this way and I'll sew on 1/4 inch following the shape. I've done that. And after sewing on 1/4 inch, I turned it back to the wrong side and I used a hemming gum to secure it, as you can see. So I've made my double gathered stitch from 1/2 inch down to the 2 inches I marked. So I'll pick both ends of the thread and make my gathers. Remember, the back neckline is 7.75 inches. So after gathering it, I ensure both sides are 3.875 inches and I made a normal stitch on it to keep it in place, as you can see. So this is the 3.875 on both sides of the back piece. Also on the front piece, I've gone ahead to make my double gather stitch. Now I'll pick both ends of the thread and make my gathers, and I'll ensure it is 10.5 inches. So after doing that, I stitched on the neckline to keep the gathers in place. So I have my exact 10.5 inches here, and that is it for the front piece. As you can see, I'll be using this pattern paper to cut out the round collar. Remember, the back neckline is 7.75 and the front neckline is 10.5. So 7.75 plus 10.5, that will give me 18.25. So I'll divide this 18.25 by 2, that will give me 9.125. So I divided the neckline by 2 because my pattern paper is folded into 2. Now I'll mark the 9.125, and from that measurement I'll go up by 1.5 inches, and I will divide this back neckline into 2 because the pattern is folded into 2. That will give me 3.875. I'll mark that and I'll make a curve to the 1.5 inches this way, as you can see me do. So I'll mark half of the neck measurement on this new line, which is the 9.125. After doing that, I'll mark the width of the collar. I'll be using 1.5 inches, so I'll mark the 1.5 inches around this way from this curved line and connect it. And I'll connect the neckline this way, so I'm not marking straight. As you can see, I'll be marking at angle 45 or 90 degrees, as you can see. So this is going to be the back piece. I'll go ahead and cut it out. And I'll be marking F here. This is going to be the front. I'll turn it upside down this way and mark F2. So that is going to be the front. I'll cut the midpoint this way and align the front together. As you can see, one is upside down. So that is it for the collar. I'll be cutting this out on my fabric. I've gone ahead to add an interfacing on my fabric, and I'll be cutting ×2, one for the lining and one for the fabric. So I'll place it this way, and as you can see, I've marked 1/2 inch round. I'll cut it out, and I'll be joining the upper part by 1/2 inch. So I've gone ahead to stitch on this strip of fabric I'll be using as a buttonhole. So I used my button to know the exact measurement I would need, and I added 1/2 inch for sewing allowance. So I'll be making 2 buttonholes, so I'll cut out 2. So I used this piece of fabric to make the buttonhole. It is 1 inch. I folded it into 2 this way and stitched on 1/2 inch. Trimmed it out. I also stitch on the edge and use a stick to bring it inside out. After doing that, I folded it again into 2. So that's how I got this for my buttonhole. So I'll take out the pattern paper and I'll be sewing by 1/2 inch from the back piece. Remember, this part is the back area. So I'll fold in 1/2 inch this way and sew on top of the 1/2 inch. As you can see me do, then I'll sew round on the 1/2 inch that I marked. So when I get to this point, I'll be attaching the button holes. So I'll fold it this way, as you can see, fold it this way, and I'll be placing the folded edge inside, as you can see me do, and I'll sew on top. I'll do the same thing on the other buttonhole. Fold it this way, place the folded edge inside. So I'm sewing on the opened edge. And when I get to the 1/2 inch, I'll also fold in the 1/2 inch. As you can see, I'll cut out the excess and trim, and then bring it inside out. And this is what it looks like. I'll make sure to iron properly. So before I attach the round collar to the dress, I'll finish up the armhole area. I'll be using this piece of fabric as a bias tape to do that. This is 1.5 inches. So I'll be placing the right side of the piece of fabric on the wrong side of the bodice. That's the wrong side of the armhole, this way, as you can see. And I'll sew on 1/4 inch. I'll sew around the armhole. So if you're using a thicker fabric, make sure to trim it out before you make a top stitch. So after doing that, I'll fold in another 1/4 inch, push in the raw edges and fold it. Fold another 1/4 inch this way and make a top stitch. After doing that, I'll cut out the excess this way. So this is how it came out. As you can see, it is neat on both the wrong side and the right side. So I'll go ahead and do that on the other side and also on the back piece, and I'll make sure to iron properly. So this is how it came out. I've done that. This is the back piece. To attach the collar, I'll be placing the right sides of the front and the back piece together this way. So right side is facing right side. Now I will mark the midpoint of the front piece. I'll go ahead and mark that out. So I'm marking it out on the wrong side of the fabric, and I'll bring out the collar. I'll also notch the midpoint of the collar. I've done that already. Now I'll align the midpoints. So I'm using the side that is not folded. Remember, I folded 1/2 inch on one side, so I'm using the side that is not folded. I'll align the midpoint and pin it down. So I'll pin it round the front piece. I've done that. I've pinned down the front piece, as you can see. Now I'll pin down the back piece. Remember, this is the wrong side and this is the opening at the back. So I'll place the right side of the collar on the wrong side of the back piece, starting from the opening at the back. I'll pin it down to the armhole area. So because of the 1/4 inch I took out, this is the space for the 1/4 inch I took out on the back piece. I'll do the same thing on the other side of the back piece. As you can see, place the right side of the collar on the wrong side of the back piece, starting from the opening down to the armhole area. I'll go ahead and sew round by 1/2 inch. This is the wrong side of the dress. I'll be making a top stitch on the right side. So as you can see, I am sewing on 1/2 inch on the unfolded part of the collar. So this is it. So now I'll be making a top stitch on this part of the collar that I folded. As you can see, on this marked 1/2 inch, I'll fold it and make a top stitch. So before I do that, I'll go ahead and trim out the gathers to reduce the tension. Now I'll make a top stitch. So I'll go ahead and pin it down first to make my work easier. As you can see, now I'll make a top stitch round. So this is how neat it came out, both on the right side and the wrong side. So I'll iron properly. After doing that, I'll place the right sides together and I'll be sewing on the 1 inch for side seam. I've done that. I've joined the side seam and ironed properly, and this is how beautiful it came out. So I've gone ahead to pin down this part. I'll be attaching my buttons later on. So that is it for the upper part of the dress. To cut out the ruffle on the lower part of the dress, I'll go ahead and measure round. What I have here is 76 inches. I'll times that into 2 for my ruffle on the second layer of the dress. That is 152 inches. Now the total gown length is going to be 60 inches minus 26 inches for the upper part of the dress. That is 34 inches. I'll divide that 34 inches into 2 for the second and the third layer. That is 17 inches. So this is 18 inches. I'll be using half inch to join the upper and the lower parts. And the width is 152 inches, like I said. So I'll be making, so you can make double gather stitch for your ruffle, but I'll be using a gather foot to do that. And I'm using a loose stitch to get ×2 of my measurements. So I'll be sewing on half inch all through for my ruffle. So this is it. I've done that. I am going to measure what I have here. So I have about 79 inches. I'm going to trim out the rest and place the right sides together this way and join by half inch. So I've gone ahead to cut out the third layer of the dress. So this is it. I times the 152 inches by 2, which is 304 inches. And I made my gathers using my gather foot, as you can see. So I cut out 18.5 inches length. I used 1 inch to hem. As you can see, I've gone ahead to hem the third layer already. Now I'll be attaching them to the upper part of the dress. Starting from the second layer, I am going to place the right sides this way. Align the side seam and sew round by half inch. I've done that. I've attached the second layer and this is how it came out. Now I'll attach the third layer. So after I made my ruffle, it is 152 inches. So I'm going to place the right sides this way and also join by half inch round. I've done that and this is how really beautiful and very full it came out. I've gone ahead to attach buttons to the dress and I also made a belt. So if you like, you can make a belt for this to give the waist its shape. This is 3 inches width and 75 inches length. So we have come to the end of this tutorial. If you have not subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? If this was helpful, kindly give this video a thumbs up, click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.